What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be responding to Agrippa's Trilemma, which is this age-old philosophical question regarding the grounding of your objective morality or grounding of absolute truth. But first, I wanted to give you an exciting new update, kind of a pivot for the future of my channel, but not so much of a pivot. I qualified for the Word War Debate Contender series. So the Word War Debate is this new debate league that's trying to get off its feet. They're looking for a face of their league. And they had all these people. They opened it up to up-and-coming debaters to audition for the Contender series to give you exposure. But basically, the Contender series is set up like a round of 32 knockout with a cash prize at the end of it. I think it's like $5,000 if you win the whole thing. And the final, if you make it to the final two, is going to be at Word War Debate 2. That's their live events that they have. So that would be in person. That would be really exciting. But I thought this would be the perfect thing to do with my channel, since I'm kind of somewhat of a debate channel. I'm posting my debates. I still have to post my Pisco debate, which I've already done. I just need to upload it at the right time. But right now I'm kind of in this erudite chapter. First it was the destiny chapter, now it's the erudite chapter. And with this league, of course I have nerves still. I have nerves every time I debate, but I'm really trying to see it as an opportunity. It is an opportunity for me, and I had to take it. So I think one of my audition videos was one of the best ones of the bunch. But I still have to get used to the structured format of formal debates. It shouldn't be a problem, though. It's basically just opening statements, crossfire, closing statements, and Q&A. I think they have a Q&A portion. But I'll start uploading videos basically of my debates. Hopefully I make it out of the first round. It's kind of brutal knockout format, but there's exciting things coming. The point is there's exciting things coming. So, but in response to Agrippa's Trilemma, getting into the philosophy now, let me give you the definition of Agrippa's Trilemma for those who don't have context. But Agrippa's Trilemma is an argument that not so erudite uses all the time as a trump card. But it's a philosophical problem asserting that it is impossible to prove any truth because every justification fails, leading to three equally flawed options: infinite regress, requiring infinite reasons, circularity, assuming what you want to prove, or dogmatism, stopping at arbitrary, unproven assumptions. And I'll go over in a bit why dogmatism might still be better than a secular worldview where you're not able to make meaning of anything and you're not able to answer the world's biggest moral questions. But yeah, I'll get into that. So, in response to Agrippa's Trilemma, there's an ordered way how logical people make meaning of things positively or negatively. What that means is we can use this to determine objective truth based on how logical thinkers made meaning in an ordered way based on something positive or negative and the consistency of these rules. All right? So stay with me. If a rule is consistent enough, as in you apply it to a number of different situations, a rule or a principle, you apply it to a number of different situations and it works out every time, well, this is how we come to the truth. This is the scientific method. I have a sense of rule utilitarianism, where we are looking at the utilitarian outcomes of rule application to prove and forever improve the validity of a rule. So it may just seem like we are amending our rules, amending our principles, once we get evidence of the contrary, to change our minds. And so we say that's inconsistent because that proves the rule is inconsistent in relation to you and your principles. We only use that to say that someone is hypocritical, but that's not useful when we're analyzing your grounding for absolute truth, rule utilitarianism, and addressing Agrippa's Trilemma. I'm not basing my rules on whether or not I will appear hypocritical. I would hope not. No one should. They should be basing their principles in truth and morality. So if we take away ourself, if we take away oneself, which we don't know is meaningfully truthful, and we don't attach this concept of rule utilitarianism to oneself, each time the rule or principle becomes more consistent. With each example, the rule or the principle becomes more consistent. That boosts the rating of the rule or principle in terms of truth. It boosts the elo of the rule or principle in terms of truth. The evidence of the consistency of the truth is verified by our collective consciousness in terms of making meaning. I'm going to give you an illustration, not an analogy that I'm using for my argument, but just an illustration. So if you've ever tried psychedelics with a group of friends who are also on psychedelics, you will find that you're all utterly retarded. You cannot form your own strings of thought and strings of sentences. It puts you into a state of insanity. But if you're with people who are on the same wavelength as you, you can make connections amongst each other to feelings and insights that are incredibly niche and literally indescribable. And you can communicate some words and some collections of words that aren't even sentences that communicate meaning to another person. So basically, if you try to communicate when both of you are tripping off acid, that's evidence of some collective consciousness that we have as humans that had to be instilled in us somehow. Unless you're saying that the drug itself puts us on the same tracks of collective consciousness, when there's a million ways your incoherent ramblings could be interpreted or misinterpreted. Rule utilitarianism is a form of utilitarianism that says an action is right as it conforms to a rule that leads to the greatest good. All right? So we should be trying to construct societies for the greatest good. So in my destiny debate, because he wasn't used to debating someone like me, you don't really come across MAGA rule utilitarians in his debates. I think I won that debate because I was just hell-bent on proving that my rule surrounding rhetoric was better than his, and I think I demonstrated that. Put it this way. In life, you have competing hierarchies of good. When you are faced with decisions that are one good, one bad, or both good, or both bad, or both neutral, insofar as you are claiming they are neutral. There are times in politics, most times, where decisions will have to be made between two options, two proposals, two policies, two or more positions, even if they are both morally neutral, that require you to weight and rank which option is morally better than the other. We make decisions like that all the time. There must be an objective, fixed standard of morality in which we make meaning. This can be religion, ideology, whichever makes the most sense, whichever makes the most moral meaning. Science leaves a ton of meaning left unanswered. So much about moral truth, secularist scientists are willing to write off because it doesn't match the code they created. Take mathematics. We accept the rules of mathematics because it makes meaning in a consistent way. We're doing the same thing here. But mathematics was created to make meaning, to balance the equations. Mathematics wouldn't make sense if the equations weren't balanced or they couldn't be balanced. So I'm just letting you know we're doing the same thing here. Christianity's concept of hell doesn't make sense. In other areas, we find the most significant meaning of any doctrine in the world. So in order to do this, there needs to be a fixed spectrum where the morality of all decisions ever made is placed, like points placed on a web. This matrix, if you will never change. All of the decisions that any one person makes in life is placed on this spectrum. The foundational principles of this matrix pull it in one direction or another. But these points in the matrix never move. It is only that we receive more information with every moral decision to be made and to come in the future that this matrix gets filled out. And it informs us of what matters. It informs us of what's good. So in other words, the truth already exists. The true morality already exists. It's just so complicated that we can't understand it yet because we don't know the moral decisions every person makes and every person has made and every person to come will make. And so this matrix needs to account for every concept of sin, every wrong decision or right decision or good decision or evil decision that a person makes and that a person will make to come. It needs to account for all of that. We can call this matrix the matrix of collective consciousness. And the reason I think the collective consciousness is an indication of truth is because of the example I provided with people taking acid and being able to come to the same conclusions despite incoherent ramblings having the ability to be misinterpreted a million different ways. So the fact that we both land on the same insight when we're both utterly retarded, that's kind of evidence of a collective consciousness indicating truth, and that's why I illustrated this collective consciousness matrix. But again, Andrew and Not So Erudite talked about this, the Agrippa's Trilemma, on the Whatever podcast. What makes you assert that Agrippa's Trilemma is a trump card for this argument? You're basically using the most we can know nothing argument in the context of a debate. That's a red flag on you. That's bad faith. All we can do as people is use our reason and measure that reason against principles. The way we prove that the principles have moral weight is if they work out positively on a wide variety of issues to solve their problems and counter arguments. We need to figure out why people moralize their argument and judge that against a standard of morality that applies positively to the most amount of scenarios we can test it against. That's why my porn argument is really this very specific thesis. The principle that we shouldn't sell and publicly promote substances that grow a certain threshold of harmful addictions. I would support a ban on gambling. I would support a ban on alcohol, cigarettes, Zins. These are all contributing to degeneracy. And let me tell you, the boys aren't going to be very happy with me banning Zins and alcohol. I have used Zins. I use weed, but I would ban weed. But that's evidence of the strength of my principles against my own biases. I'm just trying to fix my principles for my own biases. And my principle stands to reason against criticisms and skepticisms of my own intentions. Erudite grilled me in our debate that my only reason for bringing this to her is my own hatred, my own desire to punish women, to ban all the behaviors that I don't participate in. I said I wouldn't ban masturbation, but I would ban internet porn, because the masturbation would be the government getting into your bedroom, which violates another principle of mine on privacy. And also, I wouldn't ban masturbation because that's not the nature of the problem. You wouldn't levy a punishing effect on the victim class of a harmful addiction problem. But she doesn't understand the nature of the problem. The harmful, physiological, hormonal, psychological, emotional, and financial harm of the young men consuming it. The consumers. So this proves two things. Her failure to understand the nature of the problem in my paradigm proves that she is only looking at the porn issue through the problems posed to the creators of the content. Bias, red flag, woman bias. It also proves that she's not even thinking about the problem, just seeing this issue from the prism of man versus woman. She's projecting. Here I am, an addict, advocating to protect the individual from himself through the state. What does she do? Flip it back on me and assume evil intent. She called me Satan. She called me Satan, for Christ's sake. The homeless problem would be a lot easier to solve if you could mandate, like we mandate other degenerate behavior, if you could mandate that homeless improve their lives. Free choice leads to degeneracy, and that's what we've seen in our lifetime. Her assumption of rules for thee but not for me failed. So we do know that she's coming up with a lot of false assumptions. Her quick assumption of hatred indicates prejudice, prejudging people's beliefs based on what they sound like. You ever heard of it takes one to know one? In my entire life of interacting with liberals, they will tell you who they are in their assumptions and projections of prejudice onto you. That's exactly what happened here, projection. This exchange lets us know a whole lot, actually, that Kyla Turner, who claims to champion addicts in the addictions of young men, doesn't give a shit. She doesn't give a shit. Erudite, the OnlyFans defender, the one true Christian. trying to gatekeep Christianity. Now that we understand that my collection of arguments, principle, and character is stronger than erudite's, to the same standard that logical thinkers have always weighed the strength of principles, erudite might retreat to her keep. She might appeal to unorthodox ways of thinking, historically, fringe cultures that thought differently than everyone else. This concept of African time, have you ever heard of that? Oh, really? You haven't heard about the concept of African time? History is our context for how people used to reason. Which Greek philosopher should we trust to measure the strength of the rule, or if it even matters? And this is where we have to appeal to convention. We have to appeal to orthodoxy. The conditions of Westeros in Game of Thrones, or medieval Europe in real life, were worse than they are now. But their moral systems and codes of honor were better than ours in some ways. Like, okay, there's codes of honor. I like this society that they've constructed. And it has a broad appeal. You know, there's a lot of leftist chicks that like Game of Thrones. Is because they want to live in a society where there's a knight's code of honor. And innkeeper, there's classes of people, and people accept those classes of people. And innkeepers, quarter people of higher statuses, they like this. You know, this is how humans kind of want society to be constructed. We always assume that our morality is superior to humans throughout history. But humans throughout history actually learned from history and valued history. So for erudite to deviate from orthodoxy, to defend feminism, liberalism, consequentialism, pluralism, all modern ideologies, it reveals that she doesn't value the moral belief systems from history in the meaning that they make. It was liberal indoctrination when we were all taught at a young age that we must learn from the mistakes of history and the driving belief systems behind them, but not the victories and the driving belief systems behind them. Not the victories from history. We were taught that civilizations throughout history improved on their ideas, but they were essentially dumb in comparison to us, who have a wealth of technology, so we really can experiment however we want. Now, let's take a step back, because I know I've been targeting erudite, though I rightfully have a bone to pick with her. The party that wants to experiment with new wave ideologies, pluralistic ways of thinking, Marxism, pluralism, colonizer-oppressor worldview, which I call indigenous logic, is the party of the left. Dogmatism, believing in a God, is still more intellectually sound and consistent than secularism and secularists. All right, thanks for watching the video today. I know it was a very philosophical topic, but I'm guessing if you're interested in my channel, you're interested in philosophy and debate, and philosophy is a huge component to debate. I hope my illustrations helped you kind of map out collective consciousness and this grounding for objective truth and absolute morality. Absolute truth and objective morality. The objective morality part, that's more into the epistemology, and my epistemology is somewhat based in natural rights and presuppositionalism. But this is slightly different. This is more just how we understand the world and how we reason with the world, which is a prerequisite for natural rights. So stay tuned for my up-and-coming debates on the Word War Debate Contender series. I'm hoping to make this a little more exciting instead of just me talking in my room. Although I do like doing speeches and video essays. So I will see you soon.